Today I will show you basic functions and how to thread and how to use this machine, uh, because we sell quite a few of these machines, and it's so much easier if people can see basic functions, how to thread it, how to use it. So I'll start with just simply showing how you put the thread. For bobbin thread, you put the thread here, make sure the top part lines up more or less in the center. It comes out, you put it through this hole here between discs, come out in this hole, and through this guide. This guide is very important because it controls how even your bobbin sides winds side to side. So then you take a tail and you put through the hole in the bobbin on the side here and leave about 1.5 inches or so tail. And this hole, there's a little pin on here. It's hard to see. You line it up there, and it's basically pinching it, and press it down. And as you're going to sew, it'll wind the bobbin, and when it's full, it'll stop automatically. For the top thread, same thing. You put the bobbin here, come out, make sure it's in the center, and the first thread guide, it just keep thread from falling in the wrong places, and keep it guiding it directly. So there's another little wire guide here. You come through and put through this tension discs right through, and you kind of press, make sure it goes right in. And this roller here, you make a full loop like that. It's supposed to roll in there. And when you do that, make sure it doesn't fall on the side, make sure it stays in the roller, and then you come out of this little guide and you go through this take-up spring loop. Then you go into the take-up lever, and this guide, you pull on it a little bit, spring loaded, you put through and make sure it goes in. Then there's the next loop down below. You go through that. It's all these guides, very important. It keeps thread from falling in the wrong place and get caught, from breakage, keep it from breakage. Very last, we call it needle stopper here. You go through the hole there, and now on the needle, you use the right proper size needle. In this case, we have size 200 Schmetz needles, and needle has a groove on one side, and there's a flat spot above the threading hole. The flat spot goes towards inside, and the hole goes parallel to the machine. You loosen this screw, you take the needle out, you put it in, and I usually recommend to use needle nose pliers. You turn needle in the proper position so you line up the hole parallel to the machine, and at the same time you push it all the way up, and then you take a screwdriver and tighten it. And after you do, you just double check, make sure your needle is properly positioned in there. And here we'll take the bobbin. So when you have a fully winded bobbin, and you will have that tail, you need to cut off that tail because there's a little spring inside here. It keeps bobbin from wobbling too much, and it applies a little bit of tension there. So if you leave that tail, what's going to happen? That thread can actually get caught in the spring and destroy that spring. So you take a bobbin, stick it in. See, that's what that spring does. You can feel it applies a little bit of pressure. And then through this opening here, you drive the thread Sometimes it either goes one way, sometimes the other. Either way is fine, as long as you can get it and come out through this little opening there, and you hold bobbin and it'll lock in place. What you do, you always kind of pull on it. Make sure it pulls even, it has some tension to it. And very important, if you feel it gets tight or it loosens up, it's not good. maybe you have your bobbin overwinded, it may be too much thread. Make sure that when it winds, the thread doesn't stick beyond this diameter. There's adjustment. Usually bobbin winder adjusted, but if you wind too much thread on the bobbin, it won't fit properly in the bobbin case. It means it's going to be jamming in there, and it's going to affect your sewing in the beginning. And because very important to have very smooth tension. So I usually leave about 3-4 inches, and when I have my needle threaded from left to right, and I go one revolution, I just turn the machine and I get the bobbin thread up. Always have my thread through the foot hole, and now it's ready for sewing. And when you start sewing, have your both threads to the side and hold them a little bit. First couple of stitches, very important to hold them down. And once you sew for a couple of stitches, you're okay. And then if you want to make a turn, you stop with needle down and the needle start to come up. And the reason you do that, because when needle start to come up, maybe 1/4 of an inch, 3/8, you lock that stitch. When you turn the corner, you don't lose that corner stitch. Basically, you don't skip at that corner stitch. To reinforce your stitch, you lift the lever, the stitch is in reverse. We usually do 3-4 stitches. And then when you're ready to finish, you turn machine in sewing direction until needle goes all the way up and start descend a little bit. At that point, the thread is released from the shuttle hook. You lift the foot, and it's easy to pull it out. This lever here is where you adjust your stitch length. By turning this way, lever will allow go down. It makes a longer stitch. Turning to the right, it makes the stitch shorter. Lifting all the way up, it's reverse. All the way down, forward.